Picture yourself standing in the middle of an immense, sun-baked desert. The ground beneath your feet is a vast expanse of stone and sand, stretching to the horizon in every direction. To your eyes, it is a barren, empty canvas, silent and seemingly featureless, except for the occasional scrub, brush, or rock. It feels like the middle of nowhere. Now, imagine boarding a small aircraft and climbing high above that very same spot. As you look down, the world transforms completely. That empty canvas is not empty at all. Etched into the very skin of the earth are colossal figures and geometric patterns, some as long as several football fields. You realize with a jolt that you are standing right in the middle of a masterpiece, invisible from the ground. This is the profound mystery of the vast desert alignments, ancient artworks and formations designed on a scale so grand they can only be comprehended from the heavens. For decades, these enigmatic creations have baffled experts and adventurers alike. How were they made with such precision by cultures we often think of as ancient or primitive? What incredible knowledge or driving purpose could inspire people to create art that they themselves could never see in its full glory? These are not random scratches on the landscape. They are intentional, sophisticated works that speak to a deep understanding of geometry, astronomy, and the human spirit. They are puzzles left for us by civilizations that have long since passed, challenging our modern assumptions about technology, spirituality, and the very limits of human ingenuity. From the famous Nazca lines of Peru to the lesser-known giants of the Atacama Desert and the sprawling stone kites of Arabia, these formations are a global phenomenon, a shared human mystery scattered across the most arid corners of our planet. In this journey, we are going to dive deep into this enigma. We will explore the possible origins of these alignments, piecing together clues about the cultures that painstakingly created them over thousands of years. We will investigate the compelling theories that attempt to explain their hidden purpose, from giant astronomical calendars and sacred ritual pathways to sophisticated survival maps and even messages intended for celestial beings. This is more than just an exploration of ancient art. It is a detective story written on the landscape itself, a story that forces us to reconsider what we know about our ancestors. So prepare to look at the world from a new perspective, to uncover secrets that have been hiding in plain sight for millennia, and to question everything you thought you knew about the past. The desert has been keeping a secret, and we are finally learning how to listen. So what exactly are we looking at when we talk about these vast desert alignments? The technical term for them is geoglyphs, which simply means large designs made on the ground. But that simple definition does little to capture their staggering reality. These are not small carvings or simple piles of rock. We are talking about figures so enormous that you could walk right across them and have no idea you are tracing the outline of a giant spider or a perfect spiral. Their scale is almost incomprehensible from the human perspective on the ground. A single straight line in the desert might run for over a mile, unwavering in its precision. A geometric shape could enclose an area larger than a modern sports stadium. They demand to be seen from above, which is of course the central mystery. Why create something so breathtaking that you could never hope to see it in its completed form? The most famous examples are the Nazca lines in Peru, but they are just one piece of a much larger global puzzle. Scattered across the hyper-arid Atacama Desert in Chile, you will find gigantic humanoid figures, some with elaborate headdresses staring up at the sky. In the vast deserts of Saudi Arabia and Jordan, there are immense stone structures nicknamed kites and wheels, complex arrangements that form long converging lines or circular patterns. Even in the southwestern deserts of North America, ancient cultures created large intaglios or etched figures by carefully scraping away the dark desert pavement to reveal the lighter earth below. This was a worldwide phenomenon, with different cultures separated by oceans and millennia, all arriving at the same astonishing idea: to turn their entire landscape into a canvas. The methods of creation were deceptively simple, yet required immense coordinated effort. In many cases, artists or laborers would remove the top layer of dark, sun-baked stones, exposing the contrasting lighter-colored sand or clay underneath. This technique creates a clear, lasting line that can endure for centuries in a dry climate. In other instances, they did the opposite, gathering light-colored stones and carefully arranging them to form dark shapes against the lighter ground. Think of it like a giant etching or a mosaic on a planetary scale. The simplicity of the method, however, belies the incredible planning and skill involved. To create a perfect triangle or a sprawling animal figure that is proportional and accurate across such vast distances implies a sophisticated knowledge of geometry and surveying. They likely used ropes and stakes to mark out these giant blueprints, a testament to human ingenuity long before the invention of modern tools. This was far from random or haphazard work. The precision of the lines, the intentionality of the shapes, and the recurring themes across different sites all point to a deep and purposeful meaning. These were not doodles in the sand or simple boundary markers for territory. The sheer investment of time and community labor required to build them speaks to a significance that was central to their culture. They represent a monumental effort, a pouring of resources and human energy into a project whose true impact could only be fully appreciated by the gods, the cosmos, or by us centuries later, looking down from the sky. They are a message, but one written in a language we are still struggling to decipher. To truly grasp the purpose of these immense desert artworks, we need to step back in time and immerse ourselves in the worlds of the people who made them. We are dealing with cultures that flourished centuries, even millennia ago, in environments that were both harsh and spiritually significant. These were not societies that documented their history on parchment or stone tablets. Instead, they left behind a different kind of record, one etched directly into the skin of the earth. Without written words to guide us, we become detectives, piecing together their stories from the fragments they left behind, from their tools, their pottery, and of course, from these monumental alignments themselves. Consider the creators of the iconic Nazca lines in Peru. This work is attributed to the Nazca culture, which thrived from around 100 BC to 600 CE, but their artistic tradition has deeper roots in the earlier Paracas culture. The Paracas people are famous for their magnificent textiles, intricate fabrics woven with vibrant depictions of mythical beings and complex patterns. This provides a vital clue. It suggests a society that was already thinking in terms of large-scale, symbolic imagery, a culture where art was not just decoration but a fundamental part of their spiritual and cosmic understanding. The Nazca, inheriting this tradition, simply scaled it up dramatically, moving from weaving patterns on cloth to carving them into the desert floor. Shift continents to the Arabian Peninsula, and the context changes but the mystery remains. Here, the vast stone arrangements known as desert kites and wheels are often linked to ancient nomadic pastoralists, communities that moved with their herds across a vast and unforgiving landscape. Their survival depended on an intimate knowledge of the terrain, the seasons, and animal migration patterns. For such a society, creating these enormous, visible from above structures suggests a need to organize the landscape on a grand scale, perhaps for communal hunting or as territorial markers that could be recognized and understood by other groups across great distances. It speaks to a complex social structure capable of coordinating large projects, even within a nomadic framework. A common thread weaving through all these disparate cultures is a world you deeply intertwined with the spiritual and the cosmic. Their universe was alive with deities, ancestors, and natural forces that demanded reverence and interaction. The alignments were almost certainly an expression of this cosmology. They might have been massive ritual pathways where ceremonial processions could literally walk the lines of a sacred diagram, connecting with the divine through movement and geography. Alternatively, they could have been offerings, giant prayers made visible. If you believe gods or ancestral spirits reside in the sky above, what better way to communicate with them than by creating messages so large and beautiful that only they could appreciate them in full? This profound connection to the environment is another critical piece of the puzzle. These were not people separated from nature, they were part of it. Their lives were dictated by the sun, the rain, the stars, and the seasons, creating alignments that tracked celestial events like the solstice sun or the rising of a particular star. Would have been a way of mapping the heavens onto the earth, creating a calendar that ensured agricultural survival. In a desert where water is life, some patterns might have been appeals to the gods for rain or intricate maps pointing to hidden underground water sources. The landscape itself was a participant in their rituals, a sacred space to be understood, honored, and engaged with through these incredible acts of creation. This brings us to one of the most mind-bending questions surrounding these ancient wonders. Why were they made to be seen only from a perspective their creators could never naturally achieve? The very concept forces us to reconsider what we assume about the limits of ancient technology and imagination. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these massive line drawings in the Nazca desert. All you would see is a narrow groove in the earth, perhaps a path leading off into the distance. There is no vantage point on the ground that reveals the magnificent hummingbird or the perfect spiral. The full, breathtaking design is a secret hidden in plain sight, reserved exclusively for the sky. This paradox has led to some truly fascinating theories. One of the most debated ideas is that these ancient cultures might have actually found a way to achieve flight. Could they have built rudimentary hot air balloons, perhaps using woven fabrics and the heat from a fire, to lift an observer high enough to direct the work below? There is some experimental evidence to suggest this might have been possible. Others point to the use of large kites, which could have carried a person or at least a marker to help plot out these giant patterns from above. While there is no definitive archaeological proof for these methods, they challenge the notion that ancient peoples were earthbound in their perception. Perhaps they understood basic principles of optics and perspective, using a series of graduated stakes and ropes to carefully plot out these enormous designs, scaling them up from a smaller model with incredible precision. The sheer consistency of the lines over miles of terrain, however, suggests a level of accuracy that is staggering to contemplate, hinting at a sophisticated form of surveying that we are only just beginning to appreciate. Then there is the more spiritual interpretation. If physical flight was beyond their reach, perhaps the intended audience was never human to begin with. In many of these cultures, the gods and ancestral spirits were believed to reside in the heavens above. What better way to communicate with them, to offer them a gift, or to attract their benevolent gaze than by creating a masterpiece on a scale only they could properly see? These alignments could have been prayers made visible, giant offerings etched into the landscape to honor celestial beings. This idea transforms the deserts into vast outdoor temples, where the ground itself becomes a sacred canvas for divine communication. The act of creation might have been a ritual in itself, a way for the community to collectively reach toward the sky, even if their feet remained firmly on the earth. Ultimately, the purpose might have been even more profound. By creating something that could only be validated from a god's eye view, these ancient artists and engineers were perhaps making a philosophical statement. They were mapping their cosmos, imposing a human sense of order, geometry, and meaning onto the chaotic natural world. The act of creating a perfect geometric form visible only from the heavens could have been a way to align their world with the perceived perfection of the cosmos above. It was a validation of their place in the universe, a way to say, we are here, and we understand the patterns that govern the stars, even if we must inscribe them on the earth for the gods to see. This perspective doesn't just solve the puzzle of visibility, it elevates these structures from mere artifacts to profound expressions of a worldview, where the earthly and the celestial were forever intertwined. And this remarkable phenomenon extends far beyond a single desert or culture, creating a global tapestry of ancient artistry etched into the earth. While the Nazca lines of Peru are undoubtedly the most famous example, they are just one piece of a much larger and more mysterious puzzle. Scattered across the world's most arid landscapes, these geoglyphs form a network of enigmatic sites that both connect and confuse our understanding of early human civilization. Venture further south into the Atacama Desert of Chile, and you will encounter a completely different style of expression. Here, the figures are often giant anthropomorphic designs, towering human-like forms with ornate headdresses, alongside intricate labyrinthine patterns that sprawl across the desert floor. These Atacama giants, some standing over 100 meters tall, are believed to have served as guiding markers for ancient caravans traversing the harsh terrain, while also holding deep ceremonial significance for local cultures. They are less about depicting the natural world and more about representing spiritual beings or deified ancestors, showcasing a distinct artistic vision from their Peruvian neighbors. Crossing the Atlantic, the deserts of the Middle East reveal their own astonishing contributions. In Jordan and Saudi Arabia, archaeologists refer to vast collections of stone structures as the works of the old men. These include massive wheels with radiating spokes, elaborate kite-shaped traps used for hunting, and long, meandering walls that run for kilometers. The kites, in particular, are fascinating for their proposed function as sophisticated hunting systems, funneling animals toward a central enclosure. Their sheer scale and precise construction, perfectly visible only from the air, suggest a level of communal organization and environmental understanding that is truly impressive. Even the deserts of North America hold their secrets. In the Colorado Desert of California and Arizona, the Native American tribes of the region created impressive intaglios by carefully scraping away the dark surface pebbles to reveal the lighter soil underneath. These geoglyphs often depict monumental human figures, animals, and abstract shapes. Their purpose is deeply woven into the spiritual and cultural fabric of the communities, often associated with creation myths and rituals for ensuring health and rain in an unforgiving environment. This incredible geographical distribution, from the high plains of South America to the arid heart of Arabia and the deserts of the American Southwest, presents a profound question for researchers. Are we looking at evidence of independent innovation, where separate cultures around the world, faced with similar landscapes and spiritual needs, arrived at the same incredible solution of large-scale earth art? Or does the presence of such similar ideas across impossible distances hint at a forgotten network of cultural exchange, a sharing of knowledge that challenges our traditional timelines of human migration and interaction? The very existence of these widespread alignments forces us to reconsider the ingenuity and interconnectedness of ancient societies, suggesting a shared human impulse to make a mark on the world, a mark so vast it could only be comprehended from the heavens. One of the most compelling explanations for these sprawling designs connects them directly to the heavens above. Imagine living in a time before written calendars or weather forecasts, where your community's survival depended on reading the subtle cues of the natural world. The position of the sun, the moon, and the stars provided the only reliable map for time itself, dictating when to plant crops, when to expect rains, and when to hold vital ceremonies. It is within this context that the astronomical alignment theory finds its powerful footing. Researchers propose that these vast desert canvases were, in essence, giant astronomical instruments. They were not mere decorations but functional, open-air observatories and calendars of monumental scale. Consider the famous Nazca lines. While many of the animal figures capture our imagination, it is the long, arrow straight lines and geometric shapes that often hold the celestial key. Specific lines have been shown to align with the point on the horizon where the sun rises during the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. This annual event was critically important for agrarian societies, marking a turning point in the seasons and signaling the slow return of longer days essential for growth. Other lines may point toward the heliacal rising of prominent stars or constellations, their first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of invisibility. This precise knowledge allowed ancient astronomers to predict seasonal changes with remarkable accuracy, transforming the desert floor into a cosmic clock. This concept extends far beyond Peru. In the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula, the mysterious stone structures known as desert kites also show potential astronomical orientations. While their primary function was likely related to hunting, the alignment of their long driving walls with certain celestial bodies suggests a dual purpose. A kite structure pointing toward the constellation Orion, for instance, might have indicated the optimal time for a communal hunt, when herds were migrating or conditions were most favorable. This intertwining of practical survival with celestial observation highlights how ancient peoples saw no separation between the rhythms of the earth and the movements of the cosmos. The sky was a practical guidebook, and they inscribed their understanding of it onto the landscape itself. If this theory holds, it forces us to radically reconsider the capabilities of these cultures. Creating such precise alignments required generations of meticulous observation and record-keeping. It implies a sophisticated understanding of geometry and mathematics to project celestial patterns onto the terrestrial plane with such accuracy over vast distances. The alignments were not just symbolic gestures but were born from a deep, empirical engagement with the universe. They represent a practical spirituality where honoring the gods of the sky was synonymous with ensuring the prosperity and continuity of the community. These geoglyphs, therefore, stand as a breathtaking fusion of science and faith, a testament to humanity's enduring quest to find order and meaning in the great expanse above. Yet beyond the practicalities of survival and stargazing lies a theory that speaks even more deeply to the human spirit, the idea that these vast designs were not for the living at all, but for the gods. This is the realm of ritual and ceremonial interpretation, where the desert floor transforms from a scientific instrument into a sacred space. Picture a vibrant festival in the heart of the Nazca Desert, hundreds of years ago. The entire community, from the eldest elders to the youngest children, gathers for a procession that is both a social event and a profound act of faith. They do not merely walk across the land, they walk along the very lines of a giant spider or a majestic condor, their footsteps tracing a path laid out for the divine. With each step, they are not just moving, they are participating in a ritual, their collective energy flowing through the figure, activating it as a conduit for prayer. The sheer scale of these projects is a powerful clue to their ceremonial importance. Moving thousands of tons of rock and meticulously clearing vast expanses of earth was not a casual hobby. It was a generational undertaking that required a unified purpose. This immense effort points to a motivation far greater than simple utility. It was an act of devotion, a physical manifestation of a shared belief system that bound the community together. The process of creation itself may have been a continuous ritual, with the labor serving as an offering of time and energy to the deities who controlled their fragile world. In a landscape defined by its scarcity of water, many of these ceremonies likely revolved around pleas for life-giving rain. Walking a spiral pattern might have been a way to symbolically mimic a whirlpool or a water vortex, a powerful petition to the gods to unlock the hidden aquifers beneath their feet. These formations were not meant to be seen in their entirety by the people who made them. Their full glory was reserved for a higher audience, visible only from the perspective of the deities they were meant to honor. This suggests a worldview where the divine was ever present and watching from above. The geoglyphs were a permanent, monumental message etched into the very skin of the earth, a declaration of faith and a request for blessing that remained long after the priests and celebrants had left. They were a means of communication, a way for an earthbound people to reach into the heavens and make their presence known to the powers that governed their existence, ensuring their culture and their prayers would endure for centuries. Now consider a different, more earthbound purpose for these sprawling desert artworks, one rooted in the practical needs of survival and travel across unforgiving terrain. In the immense emptiness of a desert, where one stretch of sand can look exactly like another for hundreds of miles, finding your way is a matter of life and death. For ancient nomadic peoples and trade caravans crossing these seas of sand, a giant figure etched into the earth or a long, straight line marching toward the horizon would have been an invaluable navigational marker. These were not subtle signs, they were massive declarations on the landscape, impossible to miss for those who knew what to look for. A traveler might use a specific geoglyph of a bird to know they were on the correct path to a vital oasis, or follow a series of converging lines that pointed directly toward a mountain pass used for seasonal migration. This transforms the alignments from purely ceremonial objects into functional tools, a prehistoric map etched directly into the ground itself. This theory of navigation connects powerfully to the concept of territorial markers. In a world without fences or surveyor's stones, how did a community announce its presence or define the boundaries of its hunting grounds? A colossal geoglyph, requiring immense group effort to create, would serve as a powerful and permanent statement of ownership and identity. It was a way of saying, we were here, this land is part of our story. The famous desert kites of the Middle East present a fascinating case study for this dual purpose. These vast stone structures, shaped like funnels that lead to enclosed pits, are widely believed to have been used for mass hunting, strategically guiding herds of animals like gazelle into a confined space. But their sheer size and intricate design also broadcast a clear message to any other group that might come across them. They signaled that a particular area was known, managed, and utilized by a specific community, effectively marking their territory through a display of sophisticated environmental engineering. The knowledge of what these markers meant and how to use them would have been passed down through generations orally, becoming a crucial part of a group's cultural heritage. A shaman or a tribal elder would instruct the young on the meanings behind the symbols and the stories attached to the paths they illuminated. This accumulated wisdom turned the featureless desert into a familiar and navigable space, with each alignment acting as a chapter in a living, breathing guidebook. The visibility of these markers was key, not necessarily from the air, but from high points on the ground like ridges or plateaus. A caravan lookout could spot a specific pattern from miles away, correcting their course days in advance. In this light, these ancient creations were more than just art or ritual. They were a brilliant and essential technology for human resilience, a way to conquer the emptiness by leaving a lasting and guiding mark upon it. Picture an ancient civilization living on the edge of survival, where the arrival of rain is not just a weather event but a moment of profound celebration and relief. In these arid landscapes, water is life itself, the difference between a thriving community and a forgotten one. This fundamental truth leads us to a theory that grounds these mysterious desert alignments in the most practical of human needs. Perhaps these vast earthworks were not merely spiritual symbols but sophisticated tools for managing and marking the most precious resource of all. Some researchers propose that the specific shapes and directions of these lines and patterns were directly tied to the presence of water. A spiral might not just be an artistic motif but a map of an underground aquifer, its coils tracing the flow of hidden water deep beneath the sand. Converging lines could point toward a distant oasis or illustrate the path of rare flash floods, guiding people to the life-giving liquid they so desperately needed. Consider the evidence from the Nazca region of Peru. In that incredibly dry desert, some of the famous lines have been found to align almost perfectly with subterranean water channels. These aquifers, fed by water trickling down from the distant Andes Mountains, would surface in certain areas, creating natural wells. The geoglyphs in this interpretation acted as a massive communal map. They encoded generations of hard-won knowledge about where to find water, a secret language of survival written on the earth itself. The very act of creating these lines might have been part of a water capture system. By removing the dark, heat-absorbing surface stones to reveal the lighter soil beneath, the Nazca people could have altered the local microclimate, perhaps reducing evaporation or directing the scant rainfall in a specific way. This transforms our view of the alignments from passive art into active environmental engineering. This theory redefines the concept of ceremony. A ritual walk along a specific pathway could have served a dual purpose. While it might have been a spiritual act, a prayer for rain to the gods, it could also have been a practical, communal inspection of a vital water channel. The entire community walking the line would be reinforcing their collective memory of its location and function, ensuring that this critical knowledge was passed down to the next generation. The alignment becomes a living textbook, its lessons walked and remembered rather than read. In a world without written records, this was a brilliant method of preserving essential information on a grand scale. The sheer effort required to build these features underscores their importance. Moving tons of rock to create these patterns was an immense investment of labor, an investment that only makes sense if the payoff was something as fundamental as guaranteed access to water. This perspective allows us to see these ancient cultures not as mystics preoccupied with the heavens, but as ingenious survivors who used their profound understanding of the land to carve out an existence in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. But what if the intended audience for these sprawling desert messages was not the living at all, or even the gods above, but the spirits within? Let us turn our gaze inward to the human mind itself and consider a possibility that is as profound as it is intangible. Imagine a spiritual leader, a shaman, entering a deep trance state through rhythmic drumming, focused chanting, or the use of sacred plants. In this altered state of consciousness, the boundaries of reality soften. The shaman's spirit is believed to journey to other worlds, to commune with ancestors, to seek healing for the community, or to divine the future. From this perspective, the vast alignments on the desert floor take on an entirely new meaning. They may not have been designed for mortal eyes viewing from a hilltop, but for the eyes of the spirit soaring above the earthly plane during a visionary quest. These immense geometric shapes and winding pathways could be literal maps of the cosmos as perceived in these trance states. A labyrinth might represent the difficult journey to the spirit world. A series of concentric circles could depict different celestial realms. The straight lines stretching for miles might be the clean, direct pathways that spirits were believed to travel. The creators, having experienced these powerful visions, could have then worked to etch them permanently into the landscape, making the spiritual journey tangible and giving the entire community a shared sacred geography. The act of creating these lines might have even been a ritual in itself, a way of anchoring powerful spiritual energy into the earth. This idea connects deeply with the art and beliefs of many ancient cultures. We see similar patterns like spirals and zigzags in cave paintings and on pottery from various societies around the world, often interpreted as representations of altered states or spirit journeys. The desert, with its stark, empty, and otherworldly beauty, would have been the perfect canvas for such profound spiritual work. It is a place that feels simultaneously of this world and utterly disconnected from it, a natural threshold between the mundane and the divine. The alignments then become permanent portals, prayer lines, and landing strips for spiritual energy, their true form only fully visible and comprehensible to those who have learned to see with more than just their physical eyes. This theory does not necessarily contradict more practical ones. A pattern that helped locate water could also serve as a spiritual conduit, its practical purpose imbued with deep religious significance. This multifaceted view allows us to appreciate the complex and interconnected worldview of these ancient peoples, for whom the physical and spiritual worlds were not separate, but woven together into a single, meaningful whole. What if these vast desert drawings were not just meant to be seen, but also to be heard? A fascinating and emerging field of research suggests these ancient alignments might have been designed with sound in mind, creating a powerful sensory experience that we are only just beginning to understand. This area of study, known as archaeoacoustics, examines how ancient sites interact with sound. Imagine standing in the center of a massive stone circle or at the end of a long, straight line etched into the earth. In the profound silence of the desert, even a soft chant or the strike of a drum might behave in unexpected ways. The specific arrangement of rocks, the depth of the trenches, and the shape of the overall design could have subtly amplified certain frequencies, created echoes that seemed to come from all directions, or even produced a low hum that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. We know from other ancient sites around the world that our ancestors were masterful acoustic engineers, even if they understood the principles through intuition and tradition rather than formal science. The famous stone circle at Stonehenge in England, for instance, has remarkable sonic properties. Within its ring, sound can be trapped and reflected in a way that makes a voice or instrument seem to emanate from the stones themselves, creating an almost supernatural auditory effect. If a culture could achieve this with towering megaliths, it is not such a leap to consider that a culture arranging thousands of smaller stones on a desert floor might also be manipulating their environment for a sonic purpose. The desert itself provides a unique acoustic canvas. The hard, flat ground and the often still, dry air can allow sound to travel for astonishing distances with unusual clarity. Consider the potential uses during a ceremony. A spiritual leader's invocation, amplified and distorted by the alignment's geometry, could have felt like the voice of a god answering from the sky. Rhythmic drumming might have created a pervasive vibration that helped participants enter a trance-like state, their bodies physically feeling the resonance of the ritual. Furthermore, these sonic effects could have had a practical application. In a landscape with few visual landmarks, sound can be a powerful tool for navigation and communication. A specific call or signal drummed from a particular point on a giant geometric pattern might have been heard clearly at another point miles away, acting as an early form of long-distance communication to coordinate gatherings or signal important events. This theory wonderfully complicates our understanding of these sites. They were likely not just silent pictures for the gods, but potentially dynamic, living spaces where ceremony was a full-body experience. The visual awe of seeing a giant spider from a mountaintop would have been paired with the auditory awe of hearing a chant swirl and amplify around you down on the ground. It transforms these alignments from static art into immersive theaters, designed to engage all the senses and evoke the deepest emotional and spiritual responses. While direct evidence for this at most desert sites remains elusive, the possibility opens up a thrilling new dimension to the mystery, suggesting that the true power of these places might have been something felt and heard as much as it was seen. When we look at the vast geoglyphs etched into remote deserts, it's tempting to see them as completely unique phenomena, isolated wonders from a forgotten world. Yet they are far from alone. To truly appreciate their significance, we can place them alongside other great enigmas of human history, from the towering stone circles of Europe to the intricate patterns that mysteriously appear in modern crop fields. This broader view reveals a fascinating and perhaps universal human drive to shape our world on a grand scale, often for reasons that still elude our full understanding. Consider, for instance, the famous crop circles that began appearing in the English countryside in the late 20th century. While the vast majority of these have been conclusively proven to be modern creations, intricate hoaxes crafted by artists with simple tools, their very existence is telling. They capture our collective imagination precisely because they mirror the same awe-inspiring qualities of the ancient desert lines. Both are large-scale geometric designs, both are best comprehended from an aerial perspective, and both spark intense curiosity and debate about their origins. The persistence of crop circles, even as hoaxes, suggests a deep and enduring human fascination with leaving massive, cryptic marks upon the land, a fascination that clearly spans centuries. A more substantial and ancient comparison can be drawn with megalithic structures like Stonehenge in England or the Karnak stones in France. These are not delicate lines scraped into the earth, but monumental arrangements of colossal rocks weighing tons apiece. Despite the difference in medium, the underlying principles are strikingly similar. These stone circles and alignments also demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of geometry and, crucially, astronomy. The heel stone at Stonehenge aligns perfectly with the rising sun during the summer solstice, marking a pivotal moment in the annual cycle. This shared purpose to track and honor celestial events points to a common thread across disparate cultures. Whether using massive upright stones or miles of desert tracings, ancient peoples were compelled to monumentalize their cosmic knowledge, creating permanent fixtures in the landscape that tied their lives to the rhythms of the sun, moon, and stars. We can even look to mysteries beneath the waves, such as the controversial Yonaguni monument off the coast of Japan. This subaquatic structure, with its sharp angles and terraced steps, sparks fierce debate over whether it is a natural geological formation or a purpose-built megalithic complex submerged by rising sea levels. While its origins are unproven, the discussion itself is relevant. It shows our willingness to look for human intention in large-scale patterns, to see the hand of our ancestors in the most unexpected places, from the deepest deserts to the ocean floor. These comparisons collectively highlight that the desert alignments are not bizarre outliers but part of a vast, global tapestry of enigmatic earthworks. This recurring theme challenges our often underestimated view of ancient capabilities. It suggests that cultures separated by continents and millennia were independently driven to express their understanding of the universe through immense physical projects. They transformed their environments into canvases for their beliefs, creating puzzles that continue to challenge and inspire us, binding humanity across time through a shared language of scale, mystery, and wonder. Consider for a moment the staggering physical effort behind these colossal desert designs. We are not talking about a small group of people working for a few weeks. The creation of the largest geoglyphs demanded a monumental, sustained, communal effort, likely involving hundreds or even thousands of individuals laboring together across many generations. This was a project that spanned lifetimes, a testament to a shared purpose so powerful it could compel an entire society to participate in a task whose full magnificence they would never physically witness from above. This level of coordination tells us something profound about these ancient cultures. It reveals a highly organized social structure, one capable of planning vast projects, mobilizing a significant portion of the population, and passing down intricate knowledge and techniques from elders to the young. Someone had to design these patterns, to translate a vision into a plan that could be executed on a scale of miles. Others had to organize the labor, perhaps overseeing different segments or managing the procurement of tools and provisions. This suggests specialized roles and a form of leadership, whether religious, political, or communal, that could direct such a colossal undertaking. But to view this solely as a construction project misses a deeper, more human layer. The act of creation itself was likely as significant as the finished alignment. Imagine the process: entire communities, from the strongest adults to the youngest children capable of moving small stones, gathering under the sun. They would have worked together, scraping away dark surface rocks to reveal the pale earth beneath or carefully placing stones to form immense shapes. This was not just work, it was a ritual in motion. The very act of building could have been a powerful expression of shared faith, a physical prayer enacted on the landscape. The rhythmic, collective labor would have strengthened social bonds, reinforced cultural identity, and transmitted important values and stories from one generation to the next through shared experience. The sheer scale of materials moved is almost beyond comprehension. In the Nazca Desert, for instance, creating just one of the larger figures required displacing thousands of tons of rock and soil. This was achieved without modern machinery, using only simple tools, perseverance, and the coordinated power of human hands. This immense investment of time and energy indicates that these formations were absolutely central to the identity and worldview of the people who made them. They were not a side project or a frivolous decoration. They were a fundamental part of their existence, a necessary expression of their relationship with the gods, the cosmos, and their own place in the world. The continuity of the work across centuries shows a cultural stability and an unwavering commitment to a vision that far exceeded any single human lifespan, embedding these alignments into the very soul of the community. These sprawling desert canvases, enduring for millennia, owe their remarkable preservation to the very environments that posed such a challenge to their creators. The dry, wind-swept landscapes of places like the Atacama or the Arabian Peninsula experience minimal rainfall and slow rates of erosion, acting as a natural museum that protects these fragile works from being washed or worn away. But what if the harshness of this environment was not just a preserver of history, but a direct catalyst for its creation? The story of these alignments may be deeply intertwined with the story of a changing climate, a desperate and ingenious human response to an increasingly unforgiving world. Consider the possibility that these vast projects were born from necessity during periods of intense climatic shift. As ancient megadroughts gripped these regions, transforming already arid land into truly parched desert, survival would have demanded more than just new hunting techniques or water storage. It might have called for a spiritual intervention on a colossal scale. Imagine a community witnessing their world slowly drying up, their water sources vanishing, and their future becoming uncertain. In response, they might have turned to the only power they believed could help, the gods of the sky and the earth. Creating these immense, awe-inspiring patterns could have been the ultimate act of faith, a prayer etched into the very skin of the planet, begging for the return of life-giving rain. The scale of the work would have reflected the magnitude of their need, a physical manifestation of hope and reverence meant to be seen by deities looking down from the heavens. Beyond spiritual appeals, the alignments might also represent a very practical form of adaptation, a large-scale survival strategy encoded into the landscape. Some researchers propose that certain geometric patterns, particularly converging lines or spirals, could have functioned as massive maps pointing toward hidden subterranean water sources, like aquifers or seasonal waterways. In the Nazca region, for example, some of the long straight lines align almost perfectly with underground water flows. For a culture facing extreme aridity, this knowledge would have been more valuable than gold. By marking these vital resources on such a grand scale, they were creating a permanent communal record, a guide for future generations on where to find the water essential for life. This transforms the geoglyphs from mere ritual art into a sophisticated library of survival information. Furthermore, the patterns we see today might be snapshots of a lost world, reflecting landscapes that have since been buried by sand or altered by time. A strange, twisting shape that seems abstract to our eyes could be a representation of a river that once flowed through the area, a river that has been dry for thousands of years. A series of concentric circles might map out the location of a vanished lake. By studying the alignments, archaeologists and climatologists can sometimes reverse engineer the ancient environment, using these giant drawings as clues to understand what the climate was like when they were made and how it has transformed over the centuries. This means the alignments are not static pictures. They are dynamic historical documents recording a dialogue between a people and their changing planet. When we view these mysterious formations through the lens of environment and climate, they cease to be isolated puzzles and become profound statements about human resilience. They show us that ancient cultures were not passive victims of their circumstances. They were keen observers of their world, innovative problem solvers who used every tool at their disposal, from spiritual belief to practical engineering, to adapt and survive. The alignments stand as a permanent testament to the enduring human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming ecological challenges, creativity and determination can leave a mark on the world that lasts for eternity. Of all the explanations for these immense desert artworks, the idea of extraterrestrial involvement is perhaps the most dramatic and widely recognized. It is a theory born from pure wonder, a direct response to the baffling question of how and why ancient people created such massive, precise designs that they could never fully see for themselves. The logic seems, on the surface, compelling. If you were building a message or a marker intended for someone else, and that someone could only view it from high above, it follows that the intended audience must also have had that elevated perspective. This has led to the popular notion that these lines were ancient runways for alien spacecraft, or perhaps elaborate billboards meant to communicate with visitors from other worlds. This concept has captured the global imagination, fueled by books, television shows, and a deep human fascination with the possibility that we are not alone. It is a thrilling narrative, one that paints a picture of our ancestors interacting with advanced beings from the stars. Yet, mainstream archaeology and serious historical research largely dismiss this theory, and for a clear, evidence-based reason. There is simply no physical proof, no artifact, no credible piece of data that directly links these formations to extraterrestrial technology or visitation. The evidence we do have consistently points to human activity tools, pottery, cultural remains, and the sheer physical evidence of organized labor found at these sites. The persistence of the alien theory, despite the lack of scientific support, is actually a backhanded compliment to the brilliance of ancient cultures. By attributing these wonders to visitors from another planet, we inadvertently diminish the breathtaking ingenuity, creativity, and capability of the people who actually made them. It suggests that our ancestors could not possibly have conceived of or executed such grand projects on their own. This overlooks the profound human capacity for innovation, for collective effort, and for expressing complex spiritual ideas through large-scale art. The real mystery is not how aliens might have done it, but how humans, with the tools and knowledge they had, achieved something so extraordinary. A more grounded and perhaps more fascinating interpretation lies in shifting our perspective from literal aliens to celestial gods. In many of the cultures that created these alignments, the gods were not abstract concepts. They were powerful beings who resided in the sky, in the sun, the moon, and the stars. From their heavenly domain, they watched over the human world. What if these giant patterns were never meant for biological extraterrestrials, but for these divine, celestial viewers? The formations could be seen as immense offerings, acts of devotion carved into the earth itself to gain favor from the gods above. They might have been prayers made permanent, requests for rain, fertility, or victory that were literally written on the landscape for the deities to see. Alternatively, these geoglyphs could have served as ceremonial pathways, not for physical beings to walk, but for spiritual ones. Perhaps they were designed as conduits or portals, meant to guide the spirits of the dead upward to the afterlife or to invite divine energy down to the earth. In this light, the aerial visibility makes perfect symbolic sense. The people on the ground may not have seen the full picture, but they knew it was there. They knew they were walking within a giant symbol of their faith, participating in a ritual that connected the earthly realm with the celestial one. The act of creation itself was the point, a communal project that strengthened social bonds and affirmed their shared beliefs under the watchful eyes of the gods they sought to please. This view honors the sophistication of ancient spirituality while giving full credit to the incredible human achievement these patterns represent. Perhaps the most dramatic shift in our understanding of these desert mysteries has come not from a new excavation, but from a radical change in perspective made possible by modern technology. For decades, even centuries, the true scale and intricacy of these alignments remained hidden in plain sight, visible only to the birds or to anyone who could manage to climb a sufficiently high vantage point. The arrival of the airplane offered the first glimpse, but it is the recent explosion in drone photography, high-resolution satellite imagery, and sophisticated sensing technologies like LIDAR that has truly thrown the doors wide open. LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, is a method that uses laser pulses to map the surface of the Earth, effectively allowing researchers to see through vegetation and subtle topographical changes to reveal features invisible to the naked eye. This is not merely about taking better pictures, it is about peeling back the very skin of the desert to examine its ancient bones. The impact has been nothing short of revolutionary. A prime example is the ongoing work in the Arabian Peninsula. For generations, the vast, arid stretches of Saudi Arabia were known to contain mysterious stone structures often called gates or kites by local Bedouin people. But their true number and complexity were a matter of speculation. Then, with the advent of systematic analysis of satellite imagery, archaeologists made a staggering discovery. They identified not dozens or hundreds, but thousands of these monumental stoneworks, sprawling across an area larger than some countries. What was once thought to be a scattering of isolated curiosities was revealed as a vast, interconnected network of alignments, suggesting a pervasive and highly organized cultural practice that endured for millennia. This single technological leap forced a complete re-evaluation of the region's prehistoric population, their social organization, and their relationship with the landscape. This newfound ability to see the big picture from above is complemented by an equally powerful capacity to analyze the smallest details from the ground. Drones equipped with high-definition cameras and thermal sensors can fly low over these fragile sites without causing any damage, capturing data at a resolution that was previously unimaginable. They can create detailed three-dimensional models of a single geoglyph, allowing researchers to study the precise placement of each stone, the depth of the trenches, and even the subtle wear patterns that might indicate paths of precession or erosion. This micro-level view helps answer fundamental questions about construction techniques. Were the stones simply gathered and arranged, or were they quarried and shaped? The evidence gathered by these robotic eyes suggests a combination of methods, revealing a sophistication in engineering that challenges any simplistic view of ancient capabilities. Furthermore, this technological toolkit is not just filling in gaps in existing maps, it is creating entirely new categories of inquiry. By comparing satellite images taken over many years, scientists can now monitor the rate of erosion and the impact of climate change on these vulnerable sites, providing critical data for conservation efforts. Spectral analysis, which examines the light reflected from the ground, can detect minor variations in soil composition, potentially revealing where ancient workers removed specific types of rock or where organic materials have decayed, offering clues to the alignment's age. The technology is acting as a time machine in reverse, allowing us to see the landscape not as a static relic, but as a dynamic canvas that has been continuously written upon and rewritten by both human hands and natural forces. The most exciting aspect of this technological renaissance is that it is generating more questions than it answers, pushing the boundaries of archaeological theory. Discovering that there are 10 times as many stone circles in a region as previously thought does not simply mean we have 10 times the data. It forces us to reconsider their purpose entirely. A function that might seem plausible for a dozen structures, like ceremonial gathering spots, becomes far less likely for thousands. Instead, the sheer density suggests they were integral to everyday life, perhaps tied to seasonal migrations, resource management, or complex social signaling on a scale we are only beginning to comprehend. The technology, therefore, is not just a tool for solving old puzzles. It is the very instrument that is revealing the deeper, more profound layers of mystery waiting to be explored, reminding us that the desert still has many secrets left to tell. Pinpointing the exact moment these colossal desert patterns were created is one of the most formidable challenges facing researchers. Unlike a city built with timber or a tomb containing pottery, these alignments are often made from the earth itself. They are arrangements of stones that have been lying on the desert surface for eons, or grooves scraped into the ground. These materials do not contain organic matter that can be easily analyzed with traditional dating techniques. So how do we even begin to assign a date to something that is fundamentally just a rearrangement of the landscape? archaeologists have had to become incredibly inventive, relying on indirect clues and sophisticated scientific methods to build a timeline. One of the most trusted techniques is radiocarbon dating, but it cannot be applied to the rocks that form the lines. Instead, scientists look for organic material that was either incorporated during the construction or became trapped in the site immediately after. Imagine a worker 2,000 years ago accidentally dropping a piece of woven fiber from their bag, or a small animal bone being kicked into a freshly dug trench. Over time, this organic debris gets buried under wind-blown sand. By carefully excavating the edges of a geoglyph and finding such minuscule fragments, researchers can use radiocarbon dating to determine when that plant or animal died, providing a probable date for when the alignment was constructed. It is a bit like finding a dated receipt under a newly laid carpet, giving you a strong clue about when the room was last renovated. For situations where even these tiny organic clues are absent, another powerful method comes into play: optically stimulated luminescence. This technique is particularly clever because it does not date the object itself, but rather the last time it saw sunlight. Sand and sediment contain tiny minerals like quartz and feldspar that naturally absorb radiation from the environment. When these grains are buried and hidden from light, they begin storing this energy like a battery. In a laboratory, scientists can carefully expose these grains to light, causing them to release the stored energy as a faint glow. By measuring the intensity of this luminescence, they can calculate how long ago the sediment was last exposed to sunlight. When applied to the base layer of soil beneath a placed stone, or to the sediment that has filled a trench over time, this method can reveal when the alignment was built or when it was abandoned. It effectively reads the history written in the sunlight, or lack thereof, captured within the very grains of the desert. The results from these dating methods paint a fascinating picture of long-term cultural projects. At the famous Nazca lines in Peru, for instance, we now understand that they were not all created at once. The oldest geoglyphs date back more than 2,000 years, to a time before the Nazca culture even fully emerged, during what is known as the Paracas period. Then, new lines and figures were added over many centuries, with the most complex animal designs appearing later. This tells us that the tradition of creating these vast ground drawings was not a fleeting fad but a deeply ingrained practice that evolved over generations. The alignments were a living tradition with meaning and methods that shifted alongside the society that cherished them. This chronological spread adds a profound layer of mystery. It suggests that the knowledge required to create these precise formations was passed down through oral traditions for hundreds of years. The purpose of the lines may have also transformed over time. What began as simple straight lines for one generation could have been incorporated into a more complex ritual landscape by the next. This makes the search for a single, unifying explanation even more difficult. We are not looking at a single message from the past, but a palimpsest, a canvas that was written upon, erased, and rewritten by different hands across millennia. The desert floor became a storybook, with each chapter separated by centuries, waiting for us to learn how to read its layered narrative. Beyond their sheer scale and mysterious visibility, the true depth of these desert alignments is unlocked when we learn to read their visual language. These are not just lines and shapes, they are a complex lexicon of symbols, a silent poetry written across the earth, where every animal, every spiral, and every humanoid figure is a word charged with meaning. To the cultures that created them, the world was a tapestry of interconnected signs and omens. A spider was not merely an insect, it could be a powerful emblem of rain and fertility, its web a metaphor for the life-giving water that was so desperately scarce in the arid landscape. A soaring condor or hummingbird was not just a bird, It was a celestial messenger, a creature believed to bridge the gap between the human realm and the divine, carrying prayers to the gods or souls to the afterlife. Understanding this symbolic system is like finding the key to a forgotten code, transforming random scratches into a profound narrative. This iconography changes from region to region, reflecting the unique worldview of each culture. In the stark expanse of the Atacama Desert, the colossal anthropomorphic figures tell a different story. These giants, some wearing elaborate headdresses and holding ritual objects, are frequently interpreted as depictions of powerful shamans in a state of transformation. In many Andean traditions, shamans were believed to journey into the spirit world, often aided by hallucinogenic plants, and return with visions of animal spirits and cosmic geography. The giant figure might represent such a shaman merging with his spirit guide, becoming a conduit between the earthly and the supernatural. These geoglyphs, then, could be massive portraits of venerated spiritual leaders, or perhaps even maps of the hallucinogenic journeys themselves, charted on the ground for ceremonial use. Even the seemingly abstract geometric shapes are seldom arbitrary. A perfect spiral might symbolize the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, or perhaps represent a whirlwind or a vortex believed to be a portal to another world. Grids and zigzag patterns could be stylized representations of water, lightning, or mountain ranges, all elements central to survival and cosmology. The choice of symbol was deeply intentional, a direct reflection of what that society held sacred, feared, or relied upon for its existence. They were using the most permanent canvas they had, the earth itself, to inscribe their most important beliefs. This transforms our perception of these sites from puzzling artwork into a form of monumental communication. They were a language without words, a system of visual metaphors intended to convey complex philosophical and spiritual ideas, and the audience for this language was multifaceted. While we often focus on the aerial view, it is possible that these messages were meant for the community itself during rituals, walked and experienced from the ground as a form of participatory storytelling. Alternatively, their grand scale suggests they were designed to be seen by higher powers, deities, or ancestral spirits residing in the sky above. They are a testament to a universal human desire to express the inexpressible, to make sense of our place in the universe by leaving a mark that says, "We were here, and this is what we believed." There is something profoundly humbling about gazing down upon one of these massive ancient designs. Whether you are fortunate enough to see them from a small aircraft window or simply scrolling through stunning satellite imagery on a screen, the effect is often the same. A sudden, quiet awe descends. You are struck by the sheer scale of human ambition laid bare on the landscape, a feeling that is both exhilarating and deeply moving. This visceral reaction is far from accidental. Many researchers believe the architects of these alignments understood this power intimately. By creating something so vast it could only be comprehended from a vantage point they themselves could never physically reach, they were engineering an experience of pure wonder. This wasn't just art for art's sake, it was a deliberate tool, a mechanism to inspire reverence and solidify a shared cultural identity. For the people on the ground, participating in the creation or walking the pathways during a ceremony, the knowledge that they were part of something monumental, something meant to be seen by the gods above, would have been a powerful affirmation of their beliefs and their place within the community. It reinforced the authority of spiritual leaders and the cosmological order they represented, binding everyone together under a common, awe-inspiring purpose. For us in the modern world, this encounter does something different but equally powerful. It fundamentally challenges the often smug assumption that technological advancement is a straight, upward line through history. We look at these perfect geometric shapes and massive animal figures, etched with impossible precision long before the invention of flight or modern tools, and it forces a re-evaluation. It asks us uncomfortable and thrilling questions. What are we underestimating about the people of the past? What complex knowledge and sophisticated techniques have been lost to time? This isn't about ancient astronauts or lost super civilizations. It is about recognizing the incredible creativity and resilience of human beings who used observation, mathematics, and sheer determined effort to leave a permanent mark on the world. That spark of curiosity, that moment of surprised admiration, creates a direct bridge across centuries. We are connected to those ancient artists not by a solved mystery, but by a shared sense of possibility. Their achievement transcends its original ritual or practical function to become a universal symbol of what people can accomplish when they are driven by vision and belief. This enduring emotional resonance, this ability to generate wonder generation after generation, might just be the most timeless purpose of these desert mysteries. Yet these breathtaking creations, these ancient messages written on the very skin of the earth, exist in a fragile state. They face a modern world that their creators could never have foreseen, and the threats they now confront are as varied as they are severe. The very environments that have preserved them for millennia, dry, stable, and sparsely populated, are now changing. Natural erosion from wind and occasional rain slowly but steadily scours away the carefully placed stones and scraped earth, a gradual fading of lines that have endured for centuries. But the more immediate dangers are human. Consider the famous Nazca lines in Peru. While viewing platforms exist, the lure of a closer look has proven too strong for some. Unauthorized foot traffic and, more destructively, vehicles driving across the plain have left tire marks and footprints that cut across ancient figures, scarring them irreparably. A single misstep can erase a line that has survived for 2,000 years. In other regions, the pressures are even greater. The vast desert kites of Jordan and Saudi Arabia, along with other geoglyphs, now find themselves in the path of modern development. Expanding cities, new road networks, and large-scale mining operations can completely obliterate these formations before they are even properly documented. The challenge is immense. How do you protect something that is best seen from the sky yet is so vulnerable to activity on the ground? Conservation efforts have become a race against time and a test of ingenuity. Authorities and archaeologists are employing a multi-pronged approach. Physical barriers and designated viewing areas help control tourist access at the most famous sites. To monitor more remote and extensive areas, they are turning to technology. Drones and satellite imagery are used not just for discovery but for ongoing surveillance, allowing researchers to spot new damage or encroaching threats from development quickly. Perhaps the most crucial element of preservation, however, is raising awareness about the profound cultural value these sites hold. They are not merely curious patterns for our amusement. They are irreplaceable pages from the story of humanity, sacred landscapes for descendant communities, and a testament to the universal human impulse to create meaning and connect with the cosmos. Protecting them is an act of respect for that shared heritage. It ensures that future generations, armed with ever-improving technology and fresh perspectives, will have the opportunity to stand in awe, to study, and to continue the work of decoding the silent, magnificent messages left by our ancestors. Unlocking the secrets of these sprawling desert designs is not a task for any one expert working alone. It is a grand collaborative effort, a meeting of minds from fields that might seem worlds apart. Think of it like putting together a massive, ancient jigsaw puzzle where each piece is held by a different specialist. An archaeologist might unearth the tools used to create the lines or find remnants of the cultures that built them, providing a tangible timeline. But an astronomer looks up, not down, calculating whether a long, straight pathway aligns with the solstice sunrise or a particularly bright star, suggesting a celestial calendar etched into the earth. Meanwhile, an ethnographer sits with community elders, listening to stories and songs passed down through countless generations. These oral traditions can hold fragile clues, whispers of why the giant spider was so important or what it meant to walk the spiral path during a specific ceremony. A geologist examines the stones themselves and the soil beneath, understanding how the environment has changed over millennia and why this particular patch of desert was chosen for such enduring art. And an art historian analyzes the forms, the proportions, the style of a humanoid figure, comparing it to patterns on ancient pottery or textiles to trace a cultural signature. This fusion of perspectives is what prevents us from settling for a single, simplistic answer. Without it, we might see only an astronomical observatory and miss its profound ritual significance. We might recognize a hunting trap but overlook its role as a territorial marker for a nomadic tribe. By weaving together these disparate threads of evidence, a much richer, more nuanced picture emerges. These formations stop being just lines in the sand and become multidimensional creations. They were functional and spiritual, artistic and scientific, personal and communal, all at once. This interdisciplinary dialogue allows us to appreciate the true genius behind these works, revealing ancient societies that saw the world as an interconnected whole, not a series of separate subjects to be studied in isolation. Of all the ancient patterns scattered across the world's deserts, perhaps none captures our collective imagination more powerfully than the Nazca lines of Peru. Imagine a vast, arid plateau stretching between mountain ranges, a canvas of dark, rocky ground. Scratched into this surface are hundreds of figures, some geometric, some zoomorphic, so immense that their true form only coalesces when viewed from hundreds of feet in the air. A hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with perfectly articulated legs, a monkey with a characteristically coiled tail, and mysterious spirals that seem to draw the eye inward. These are not small sketches. Many are the length of several football fields, drawn with lines that run for miles with barely a waver. The creators of this breathtaking gallery were the Nazca people, a culture that flourished in this region for roughly 1,000 years, from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after. They left behind no written records to explain their monumental project, only the lines themselves and the artifacts of their daily and ceremonial lives. This silence is what fuels the mystery. How did they achieve such staggering precision without the ability to fly? The prevailing theory involves a process of scaling up a smaller design using a system of stakes and ropes. A master planner could have outlined the figure on a smaller scale, and then teams of workers could have transferred the proportions, incrementally moving outwards, clearing the dark surface stones to reveal the lighter, sand-colored earth beneath. The sheer consistency of the lines, arrows straight across vast distances, speaks to a sophisticated understanding of geometry and a remarkable level of communal organization. But the how, as incredible as it is, always leads back to the more profound question of why. Why invest such immense effort into creating art that you can never fully see from the ground? One of the longest-standing theories posits an astronomical purpose. Some researchers have noted that certain lines align with the rising or setting points of the sun during solstices or with particularly bright stars. In an agricultural society, even one adapted to a desert environment, tracking the seasons was a matter of survival, and what better than a giant, permanent calendar etched into the landscape? Yet this theory has been challenged. While some alignments are compelling, not all the lines fit a clear celestial pattern, leaving room for other interpretations. Another compelling idea connects the lines directly to the most precious resource in the desert: water. The Nazca region is profoundly dry, but beneath the surface lie subterranean aquifers. Some researchers have observed that several of the largest geoglyphs and lines are positioned directly over these hidden water sources. Furthermore, many of the animal figures, like the hummingbird or the monkey, are species associated with water or fertile lands to the east. This has led to the theory that the lines were not just symbols but active components of ritual practices aimed at appealing to deities for life-giving water. Processions along these vast pathways during ceremonial times could have been a way of invoking the gods, of drawing the essence of water from the earth and sky. The giant drawings, then, might have been offerings meant to be seen and appreciated by the celestial beings who controlled the rains. Then there is the perspective that focuses on the spiritual journey itself. The lines, particularly the long, straight ones and intricate labyrinths, could have served as sacred paths for ceremonial walks. Participants, perhaps in a state of altered consciousness induced by rituals, might have traversed these routes as a form of pilgrimage or meditation, their physical movement mirroring a spiritual quest. From the ground, the experience would have been linear and immersive, a path leading toward a sacred center or symbol. Only from above would the full, symbolic shape of their journey be revealed, a form known perhaps only to the spiritual leaders or to the gods themselves. This duality of perspective, the ground-level experience versus the aerial view, suggests a complex worldview where the human and the divine occupied different visual planes. Despite decades of study using the most advanced technology, the Nazca lines refuse to surrender a single, simple secret. They are a perfect symbol for the entire phenomenon of desert alignments, embodying the tension between human ingenuity and enduring mystery. They were likely all these things at once: an astronomical guide, a plea for water, a sacred map, and a profound expression of art. Their power lies not in a definitive answer, but in their ability to make us wonder, to remind us of the deep and mysterious connections ancient cultures forged with their world, the cosmos, and the forces that sustain them. Moving from the complex menagerie of Nazca, we find another colossal figure gazing skyward from one of the driest places on Earth. The Atacama Giant of northern Chile is a true behemoth, a staggering figure stretching over 390 feet in height, making it the largest anthropomorphic geoglyph discovered anywhere on the planet. This immense humanoid form was constructed on a hillside slope, a deliberate choice of location that makes it visible from great distances across the barren plains below. Unlike the Nazca lines, which require an aerial view for comprehension, the giant is meant to be seen from the ground, a looming presence on the horizon that would have guided people for generations. Its creation is attributed to the indigenous cultures of the region, who crafted it sometime between the years 1000 and 1400 of the Common Era, using the same technique of removing dark surface stones to expose the lighter substrate beneath. The figure itself is rich with detail and symbolic intention. It features a square head topped by an elaborate, radiating headdress or crown, a common attribute often associated with shamanic figures or deities in Andean iconography. From its imposing head flow two long, straight legs, and while its arms are less distinct, its overall posture is one of power and observation. What makes the Atacama Giant particularly fascinating to researchers are the lines and markings associated with it. Some researchers have proposed that the figure itself functions as a giant astronomical marker. The shape of the head and its crown, along with lines emanating from the figure's sides and head, appear to correspond with the trajectories of the moon throughout the year. In a landscape where water and survival were dictated by precise seasonal changes, the ability to predict lunar cycles would have been invaluable for scheduling ceremonies, planning agricultural activities, and understanding the passage of time. This practical function as a celestial calendar dovetails perfectly with its role as a spiritual landmark. The giant likely represented a powerful ancestral deity or a revered shaman who was believed to act as an intermediary between the human world and the spiritual realm. Its immense size and dominant position on the landscape would have instilled a sense of awe and reinforced the cultural and religious authority of the community's leaders. Pilgrimages to the site or simply viewing it from a distance during travels would have served as a constant reminder of the community's beliefs and its connection to the cosmos. It was not merely a picture on a hill, it was an active participant in the cultural life of the people, a fixed point of reference in both a physical and a metaphysical sense. Furthermore, its location along ancient trade routes underscores a third, deeply practical purpose: navigation. The Atacama Desert is a vast and unforgiving expanse where travelers could easily become disoriented. The giant, visible from miles away, would have served as an unmistakable beacon, guiding caravans of people and llamas moving between the highlands and the Pacific coast. It was a permanent signpost in a world of shifting sands, ensuring safe passage and facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture across great distances. The Atacama Giant, therefore, stands as a powerful testament to the multifaceted nature of these ancient creations. It was at once an astronomical observatory, a sacred icon of spiritual belief, and a crucial tool for survival and commerce. It demonstrates with breathtaking clarity that for ancient cultures, the division we often make between the practical and the spiritual simply did not exist. The universe was an interconnected whole, and their art was a way of mapping, honoring, and navigating every layer of it. While the Atacama Giant served as a singular landmark, the arid landscapes of the Middle East present an entirely different and even more expansive phenomenon. Scattered across the deserts of Jordan, Syria, and most notably Saudi Arabia, are immense stone structures known to modern archaeologists as desert kites. From the ground, these formations appear as low, meandering lines of rock, seemingly random and difficult to comprehend, but from the sky, their true genius is revealed. They are vast, intricate designs composed of long, converging stone walls that can stretch for miles, funneling inward towards a central enclosure, often surrounded by what look like small pits. The name kite is a perfect descriptor, as the entire structure, when viewed from above, resembles a child's kite with long, streaming tails. For many years, the prevailing theory held that these were sophisticated mass hunting traps, an ingenious adaptation to a challenging environment. Imagine the scene thousands of years ago. Herds of gazelles or other wild game would be gently guided by hunters towards the wide open mouth of the kite. The long, low walls, which would not have startled the animals, would subtly direct their movement, channeling them into the ever-narrowing funnel. As the animals were compressed into the tight space, they would be driven into the final enclosure where they could be more easily managed. The surrounding pits might have served as hiding places for hunters or as traps to capture the disoriented animals. This theory paints a picture of remarkable communal cooperation and deep understanding of animal behavior, turning the very landscape into a tool for survival in a region where resources were scarce. Yet, the sheer scale and number of these kites prompts deeper questions. Recent discoveries through satellite imagery and aerial surveys have been nothing short of revolutionary, revealing not hundreds, but many thousands of these structures across the Arabian Peninsula. Some of these kites are truly colossal, with driving lines extending over several kilometers. This density suggests a level of social organization far beyond small, nomadic bands. Constructing such massive features required coordinated labor and a shared knowledge that was passed down through generations. The aerial visibility is also a key clue. While the hunters on the ground would have needed to understand the layout, the full, majestic plan of the kite was only apparent from a perspective its creators could never physically achieve. This leads to the compelling idea that the kites held a significance that transcended their practical use. Perhaps they served as territorial markers, their imposing designs visible from surrounding high grounds, signaling to other groups that an area was claimed or that a particular resource was managed by a specific community. In a world without written deeds or borders, what better way to assert presence than by etching your claim permanently into the earth itself? Furthermore, the act of constructing such a massive communal project would have reinforced social bonds and created a shared identity. The kite was not just a tool, it was a monument to the group's ingenuity and their harmonious relationship with the land. Some researchers even speculate that the rituals associated with a successful hunt, a vital event for the community's survival, may have endowed these sites with profound spiritual meaning, turning them into sacred spaces where the people gave thanks for the life that sustained them. The desert kites of Arabia stand as a powerful testament to human adaptation. They show us that ancient peoples were not merely surviving in harsh environments, they were actively and intelligently shaping them. They employed large-scale landscape engineering to manage precious resources, while simultaneously creating symbols of their cultural resilience. These structures blur the line between the practical and the symbolic, reminding us that for our ancestors, every aspect of life was intertwined with community, spirituality, and a profound connection to the world around them. While the practical applications of desert kites and other alignments are compelling, this perspective only tells part of the story. To fully appreciate these creations, we must also step back and admire them through the lens of art and pure aesthetics. These were not merely functional earthworks, they were profound expressions of beauty conceived on a truly massive scale. The creators possessed a sophisticated understanding of design principles, showcasing an innate sense of balance, proportion, and harmony with the natural world. The spiral of a Nazca geoglyph or the perfect symmetry of a desert wheel reveals a meticulous attention to form that transcends simple utility. This suggests a deep-seated human desire to not just exist within a landscape, but to actively enhance it, to leave a mark that was both meaningful and visually stunning. We can think of these alignments as ancient precursors to modern public art installations or even corporate logos etched into the earth. Just as a skyscraper's design or a city's monumental sculpture communicates identity and power, these geoglyphs likely served as powerful expressions of communal identity. They announced to the world, and perhaps to the cosmos, the presence of a people with the knowledge, coordination, and spiritual conviction to undertake such a monumental task. The act of creation itself might have been a source of immense pride, a collective project that bound the community together and distinguished them from their neighbors. They were saying, "We are here, and this is who we are." This artistic viewpoint allows us to connect with these ancient peoples on a more emotional, human level. It moves us beyond seeing them as primitive survivalists and lets us appreciate them as visionary artists. They looked out at a vast, empty canvas of desert and saw an opportunity for creation. They transformed their entire environment into a gallery of enduring messages, using the very soil and stone as their medium. The patterns they chose, whether a soaring condor, an intricate labyrinth, or an abstract geometric grid, were undoubtedly loaded with cultural significance, a visual language that spoke of their myths, their gods, and their place in the universe. While their specific meanings may be lost to time, their power to inspire awe and wonder remains completely undiminished, a timeless testament to the universal human impulse to create. Perhaps the most vital clues to unlocking the purpose of these desert alignments do not come from satellite imagery or archaeological surveys, but from the rich oral histories and mythologies passed down through generations by the descendants of their creators. These ancient stories, often dismissed as mere legend, provide a crucial cultural framework that pure archaeology cannot, reminding us that these immense patterns were not isolated anomalies but integral parts of a living, breathing tradition. For many indigenous communities, these geoglyphs are not puzzles to be solved but sacred geography, deeply embedded with stories that gave them purpose and profound resonance. Consider the giant serpent mound found in the American Southwest, a vast effigy etched into the earth. For local tribes, this is not an abstract shape but a representation of a powerful deity from their creation stories, a physical manifestation of a being who carved rivers through the land and taught the people how to live in harmony with the desert. Walking its length was a ceremonial act, a way to physically trace the journey of their ancestors and connect with the spiritual energy of the world. Similarly, the stories told by the elders in the Andes speak of beings who descended from the Milky Way, arriving on Earth with knowledge of astronomy and agriculture. The vast arrow-like alignments and trapezoids pointing towards the mountains are, in this light, not simply abstract patterns. They could be seen as symbolic representations of a celestial connection, landing strips for gods or pathways for spirits to travel between realms, designed to be seen from the vantage point from which they came. These narratives transform the alignments from silent enigmas into chapters of a grand, unwritten epic. They were not meant to be cryptic, but to be understood within a specific cultural and spiritual context. The stories gave meaning to the immense labor, explaining why a community would devote generations to moving stones in a barren landscape. The geoglyph was not the end product, the story was. The physical form served as a mnemonic device, a permanent, sprawling illustration on the Earth's canvas that helped to preserve and teach complex cosmological ideas and historical events. This deep intertwining of myth and landscape suggests that to truly understand why these patterns were made, we must listen to the echoes of the stories that still linger in the desert air, for they hold the key to the worldview that made such breathtaking creations not just possible, but essential. Moving beyond the practical and astronomical theories, we enter a realm that connects the physical landscape to the invisible world. This brings us to the concept of geomancy, an ancient practice found in various cultures around the globe. Geomancy is essentially the art of understanding and aligning with the perceived energies of the Earth. Proponents of this theory suggest that the desert alignments were not random artistic expressions or simple tools, but were instead carefully positioned to interact with a network of subtle Earth energies, often referred to as ley lines. These hypothetical lines are thought to crisscross the planet, carrying a natural force or power. The idea is that ancient cultures, deeply attuned to their environment in ways we may have lost, could somehow sense these energies. They might have built these massive formations to harness this power, perhaps to enhance the fertility of the land, to promote healing, or to create a powerful sacred space for spiritual ceremonies. Alternatively, the geoglyphs could have been constructed to honor these energies, acting as monumental acknowledgments of the invisible forces they believed shaped their world and their lives. This perspective presents a worldview where nothing is separate. The landscape, spirituality, and human activity are all part of a single, interconnected system. A hill, a water source, or a particular rock formation wasn't just a physical object. It was a being with a spirit and an influence. In such a worldview, building a massive alignment would be a way of communicating with the landscape, of tapping into its power and integrating human existence into a larger cosmic order. While mainstream archaeology remains skeptical of ley lines due to a lack of concrete, measurable evidence, the value of the geomantic theory lies not in its scientific provability but in its cultural insight. It challenges us to step outside our modern, materialistic perspective and consider how these ancient peoples might have experienced reality. They likely perceived their environment as animate, alive, and charged with a spiritual power that demanded respect and participation. We can find echoes of this holistic thinking in traditions that have survived to this day. The practice of feng shui in Chinese culture, for instance, involves arranging buildings and objects in harmony with the flow of energy or kai through a space. Similarly, the Aboriginal concept of songlines in Australia describes pathways across the land that are both literal navigation routes and sacred narratives, imbued with spiritual significance. Even the placement of medieval cathedrals on old pagan sites in Europe hints at a long-standing human intuition about powerful places. Viewing the desert alignments through this lens transforms them from mere pictures into potential energy maps. A long, straight line might chart the course of a powerful telluric current, while a spiral could mark a vortex or a point where these energies were believed to converge. This interpretation invites us to appreciate the alignments not just as feats of engineering, but as profound expressions of a philosophy that saw the Earth itself as a sacred, living entity. These vast, silent patterns etched into the Earth's most remote deserts have not remained hidden secrets of the past. Instead, they have erupted into our modern imagination, captivating audiences worldwide through books, films, and endless online discussions. This journey from archaeological enigma to pop culture phenomenon is a story in itself, revealing our own society's fascination with the unexplained. Blockbuster movies often use these geoglyphs as backdrops for science fiction adventures, suggesting alien architects or ancient prophecies. While these fictional tales are entertaining, they sometimes veer into sensationalism, spreading theories that lack scientific support. Yet, this very sensationalism has an unexpected benefit. It ignites a spark of public curiosity that can be channeled into genuine research and discovery. When millions of people see these mysterious lines in a thrilling movie scene or a viral social media post, they are driven to learn more, often leading them to reputable documentaries and articles that separate fact from fiction. This surge in public interest has tangible effects. Increased visibility often translates into increased funding for archaeological projects. Grants and sponsorships become more accessible when a site captures the global imagination. Furthermore, this widespread attention fosters a powerful sense of shared heritage and responsibility. People who have never set foot in Peru or Chile feel a connection to these faraway lines and become advocates for their preservation. Social media platforms, with their ability to share stunning aerial drone footage instantly, have democratized access to these wonders. Anyone with an internet connection can now explore high-resolution images of the Nazca lines or the Atacama Giant, fostering a global community of amateur sleuths and enthusiasts who contribute to citizen science projects and crowd-sourced research. The enduring appeal of these formations speaks to something fundamental in the human spirit. They remind us that the drive to create meaning, to leave a mark, and to connect with forces greater than ourselves is timeless. In our modern world of rapid technology and fleeting trends, these ancient, patient designs challenge us to think on a grander scale. They inspire artists, writers, and filmmakers to explore themes of mystery, humanity, and our place in the universe. This cultural resonance ensures that the story of the desert alignments is continually rewritten, not as a closed chapter of history, but as a living dialogue between the past and the present, forever encouraging us to look closer and question deeper. Exploring these vast desert patterns means more than just unraveling an ancient mystery. It involves a profound responsibility to the living cultures connected to them. Many of these geoglyphs are not abandoned relics of a forgotten past, but remain deeply sacred to descendant communities for whom these lines are a part of their spiritual and cultural identity. Imagine a formation your ancestors created, a site central to your people's history, suddenly becoming the focus of international scrutiny. Researchers arriving with drones and mapping tools might see a fascinating puzzle to be solved, but for local communities, it can feel like an intrusion upon a cherished heritage. This fundamental difference in perspective is why modern archaeology has shifted towards a more collaborative and ethical approach, recognizing that the pursuit of knowledge must be balanced with respect and consent. This ethical framework means moving beyond simply studying these sites to actively partnering with the people who have the deepest connection to them. It involves sharing discoveries and data freely, ensuring that research findings are accessible and beneficial to the communities themselves. Conservation efforts are no longer planned in distant offices, but are developed through dialogue, incorporating indigenous knowledge about the land and the significance of the patterns. This collaborative spirit acknowledges that local communities are not merely subjects of study, but essential partners and guardians of their own heritage. Their oral histories and traditional knowledge can offer invaluable insights that pure archaeological science might overlook, providing a richer, more nuanced understanding of why these alignments were made. Ultimately, this respectful approach ensures that these incredible monuments are preserved not as static tourist attractions frozen in time, but as living testaments to human ingenuity that continue to hold meaning. By prioritizing ethical considerations, archaeologists and historians help safeguard these sites for future generations while honoring the cultures that created them. This practice transforms exploration from a one-sided extraction of information into a mutual exchange, fostering a shared sense of stewardship. It is a recognition that the true value of these desert alignments lies not only in the secrets they hold about the past, but in their power to connect us all through a shared respect for human history and cultural dignity. The quest to understand these vast desert alignments is far from finished, and the path forward for research holds incredible promise. Future investigations are poised to dive deeper than ever before, leveraging new technologies and methodologies to peel back layers of history we have only begun to glimpse. One of the most exciting frontiers lies in the refinement of dating techniques. Currently, determining the precise age of these formations is a complex challenge. Many are constructed from stones that have sat on the surface for millennia, making traditional carbon dating impossible unless organic material is trapped beneath them. Emerging methods like cosmogenic nuclide dating, which analyzes the exposure history of rock surfaces to cosmic radiation, could provide much more accurate timelines. Imagine being able to pinpoint not just the century but the specific generation that orchestrated the placement of a massive geoglyph, allowing us to connect these patterns directly to known historical events or climatic shifts. This push for chronological clarity will undoubtedly be matched by a drive for deeper interdisciplinary collaboration. The true meaning of these sites cannot be unlocked by archaeologists alone. Astronomers can meticulously track celestial alignments with advanced software that models ancient skies. Geophysicists might deploy ground-penetrating radar to reveal subterranean structures or water channels associated with the lines. Ethnographers and anthropologists working closely with descendant communities can integrate oral histories and traditional knowledge, offering cultural context that written records simply do not provide. This fusion of perspectives transforms the study from a solitary discipline into a rich, holistic conversation, where a line in the desert is not just a physical feature but a nexus of astronomy, ecology, and belief. Parallel to this, the exploration of understudied regions will likely yield astonishing discoveries. Vast swaths of deserts in Africa, Central Asia, and Australia remain largely unexamined from this specific aerial perspective. With the democratization of drone technology and the increasing availability of high-resolution satellite imagery to researchers, these remote areas are finally becoming accessible. It is highly probable that we have only seen a fraction of what exists. There could be networks of alignments spanning entire continents, waiting to be mapped. Each new discovery has the potential to rewrite our understanding of ancient trade routes, cultural exchange, and the universal human impulse to create meaning on a grand scale. Artificial intelligence is set to play a revolutionary role in this new era of discovery. Machine learning algorithms can be trained to scan thousands of square miles of satellite imagery, identifying subtle patterns and geometric shapes that might be invisible to the human eye. This could reveal entirely new classes of geoglyphs or expose intricate connections between sites separated by vast distances. An AI might detect that a pattern in Peru shares a startlingly similar mathematical proportion with one in Jordan, reigniting debates about prehistorical global connections or the independent development of complex ideas. This technology moves us beyond chance discoveries by pilots to a systematic, comprehensive survey of our planet's ancient artistic heritage. Furthermore, climate science will provide an essential backdrop to this research. By reconstructing paleoclimates through soil samples, pollen analysis, and geological data, scientists can paint a vivid picture of the environmental conditions when these alignments were built. Were they created during periods of extreme drought as desperate appeals to the gods for rain? Or were they markers of abundance, celebrating fertile periods and guiding people to thriving ecosystems? Understanding the ancient climate transforms these static images into dynamic responses to a changing world, revealing how human creativity and resilience interacted with environmental challenges. The story of these alignments is, in many ways, a story of survival and adaptation written across the landscape. As these tools and techniques converge, we may well discover that these formations are far more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined. What we currently view as isolated sites might be part of a planetary tapestry of human expression. This continuous journey of discovery does more than just add pages to history books. It fundamentally redefines our perception of ancient innovation. It challenges the outdated notion of primitive ancestors and replaces it with an awe-inspiring picture of sophisticated cultures who possessed profound knowledge and a timeless desire to leave their mark for the ages, a message we are only now learning to read from the sky. Perhaps the most honest conclusion we can draw about these vast desert alignments is that they refuse to be confined to a single explanation. Attempting to pin them down to just one purpose feels almost disrespectful to the sophisticated cultures that created them. These were not one-dimensional people, so why would their greatest and most enduring works be one-dimensional? The evidence suggests a beautiful, complex interplay of functions. A single set of lines in the Nazca Desert, for instance, might have served as an astronomical marker to signal the arrival of rains, a sacred path walked during a water-seeking ceremony, a territorial boundary for a specific clan, and a breathtaking piece of land art, all at the same time. Its meaning was not fixed. It could shift with the season, the ritual, or the generation. This multifaceted nature transforms these formations from simple artifacts into profound expressions of a worldview. For these ancient cultures, the celestial, the spiritual, and the survivalist were not separate categories as we might see them today. They were woven together into a single, holistic understanding of existence. The movement of the stars directly influenced the availability of water and food, which in turn dictated the timing of rituals meant to ensure community survival. The act of creating these massive alignments was therefore a way to physically etch this interconnected belief system into the very flesh of the earth. It was a declaration of understanding, a mapping of their cosmos, and a prayer for continuity, all rendered on a scale meant to be witnessed by the forces they sought to appease or comprehend. Synthesizing the theories allows us to appreciate this ingenuity in its full spectrum. We move beyond arguing whether it was a calendar or a temple and begin to see it as both and more. The astronomical theory explains the precision and alignments. The ritual theory explains the immense communal effort and sacred symbolism. The practical theory explains their relationship to water and travel routes, and the artistic theory explains the powerful aesthetic impact that still resonates today. None of these insights cancel the others out. They enrich each other, building a fuller, more vibrant picture of the past. This holistic approach also helps us understand the variations we see across different sites. A desert kite in Jordan, primarily functional as a hunting trap, might still hold symbolic significance for the tribe that built it. Conversely, a massive anthropomorphic figure in Chile, likely deeply spiritual, could also have functioned as a landmark for navigation. The purpose was layered, and the primary function might have changed over centuries of use. By embracing this complexity, we stop looking for a single key to unlock the mystery and instead begin to appreciate the intricate tapestry of meaning that these ancient artists and engineers left behind for us to ponder. They challenge us to think in more connected ways, to see the unity in purpose behind the dazzling diversity of form, and to acknowledge the deep, universal human desire to find our place in the vastness of the world and the cosmos above. Perhaps the most honest conclusion we can draw about these vast desert alignments is that they refuse to be confined to a single explanation. Attempting to pin them down to just one purpose feels almost disrespectful to the sophisticated cultures that created them. These were not one-dimensional people, so why would their greatest and most enduring works be one-dimensional? The evidence suggests a beautiful, complex interplay of functions. A single set of lines in the Nazca Desert, for instance, might have served as an astronomical marker to signal the arrival of rains, a sacred path walked during a water-seeking ceremony, a territorial boundary for a specific clan, and a breathtaking piece of land art all at the same time. Its meaning was not fixed. It could shift with the season, the ritual, or the generation. This multifaceted nature transforms these formations from simple artifacts into profound expressions of a worldview. For these ancient cultures, the celestial, the spiritual, and the survivalist were not separate categories as we might see them today. They were woven together into a single, holistic understanding of existence. The movement of the stars directly influenced the availability of water and food, which in turn dictated the timing of rituals meant to ensure community survival. The act of creating these massive alignments was therefore a way to physically etch this interconnected belief system into the very flesh of the earth. It was a declaration of understanding, a mapping of their cosmos, and a prayer for continuity, all rendered on a scale meant to be witnessed by the forces they sought to appease or comprehend. Synthesizing the theories allows us to appreciate this ingenuity in its full spectrum. We move beyond arguing whether it was a calendar or a temple and begin to see it as both and more. The astronomical theory explains the precision and alignments. The ritual theory explains the immense communal effort and sacred symbolism. The practical theory explains their relationship to water and travel routes, and the artistic theory explains the powerful aesthetic impact that still resonates today. None of these insights cancel the others out. They enrich each other, building a fuller, more vibrant picture of the past. This holistic approach also helps us understand the variations we see across different sites. A desert kite in Jordan, primarily functional as a hunting trap, might still hold symbolic significance for the tribe that built it. Conversely, a massive anthropomorphic figure in Chile, likely deeply spiritual, could also have functioned as a landmark for navigation. The purpose was layered, and the primary function might have changed over centuries of use. By embracing this complexity, we stop looking for a single key to unlock the mystery and instead begin to appreciate the intricate tapestry of meaning that these ancient artists and engineers left behind for us to ponder. They challenge us to think in more connected ways, to see the unity in purpose behind the dazzling diversity of form, and to acknowledge the deep, universal human desire to find our place in the vastness of the world and the cosmos above.